Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the documentary Black Box Diaries, directed by Shiori. So this is a deeply personal and emotionally charged documentary that tells the story of the director Shiori Ito's harrowing journey to seek justice after her sexual assault in Japan. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary. The Oscar was won in the end by No Other Land, and I've done a separate review of that. Like No Other Land, this is a story that needs to be told, and the platform and the publicity of the Oscars is deserving for Black Box Diaries, I think. Ito is subject, director and producer, and the film is both a testament to her resilience and a searing indictment of the systemic barriers faced by survivors of sexual violence. The process of making the documentary ended up coinciding with the Me Too movement, so the film fits into a broader context, but it also feels like the particular injustices of the Japanese legal system when it comes to rape needed this exposure. At its core, Black Box Diaries is a story of courage. Great courage and resilience. Ito's decision to come forward with her allegations against her rapist, a prominent journalist with close ties to Japan's political elite, was met with widespread hostility and disbelief. The documentary captures the immense personal toll of her fight, from the relentless public scrutiny to the emotional and psychological trauma that she endured. Ito's dual role as both subject and director kind of adds a layer of complexity to the documentary. On the one hand, her vulnerability is palpable throughout the film. The confessional phone videos, security footage and news clips create an intimate portrait of her struggle, making it clear that she was navigating not only a legal battle, but also a deeply personal crisis. At times, this vulnerability felt really unsettling. Watching Ito grapple with her trauma while simultaneously crafting a documentary raised questions for me about whether she was really emotionally equipped to take on this dual role. At times, I felt like she shouldn't be doing this. We're given the slightest glance at a moment where it suggested that she's made a suicide attempt. It felt like something that we shouldn't be watching, like a very personal therapy session where someone is releasing some trauma. That said, at the same time, it's this very vulnerability that makes the film compelling, I think. It's a rare and unfiltered glimpse into the life of a survivor, unmediated by external voices or perspectives. And at times, she does appear very strong and determined. In this regard, Ito's role as director demonstrates a strong sense of control and purpose. She documents her journey, weaving together a narrative that's both personal and political. The film's structure, which alternates between raw emotional moments and broader societal commentary, reflects her ability to reclaim agency over her story. This duality of vulnerability and control is one of the documentary's strengths, and it makes it both a deeply personal account and a powerful work of activism, of advocacy. The emotional core of Black Box Diaries is really its driving force. Ito's story is undeniably powerful, and the film does an excellent job of conveying the emotional weight of her journey. The raw honesty of her phone recordings, the tension of the courtroom scenes, and the palpable hostility she faces from the public and institutions all contribute to a narrative that's both gripping and emotional. However, the documentary's emotional intensity sometimes comes at the expense of narrative clarity. At times, the storytelling felt a bit uneven, with certain moments, such as the hospital scene and the suggestion of a suicide attempt, being introduced and then quickly moved past. At times, it didn't go into enough detail. I think that the film requires us to trust her, and reflecting on the film afterwards, I definitely trust her. However, I think that the documentary could have been a bit more meticulous in taking us through the process of her actually gathering the evidence. The shifts in tone between her as a confident filmmaker and then as a very vulnerable victim were perhaps a little too jarring. I think that more information on the investigation would ground the viewer with the facts, making the emotional parts of the film held within a stronger structure. As I say, after the film, I completely trust her. However, while watching it, I did have the feeling that perhaps it occasionally borders on being a little bit manipulative. The use of confessional footage and emotional appeals, I think these were really effective in eliciting a strong response from the viewer. At times, though, it did make me wonder if it was a little bit calculated. This approach definitely succeeds in drawing attention to the systemic issues at play, but I think it also potentially detracts from the documentary's credibility. I think it's about the balance between emotional appeal and factual rigour. Perhaps she made the decision to not weigh the film down with facts, that it's about exposing the trauma that a rape victim goes through and the lasting impact of that trauma. There's no doubt by the end that Ito can be trusted. Her case is ultimately validated by the court's ruling and some of the key testimonies, such as those from Investigator A and the hotel doorman. Perhaps that is enough. And her main purpose perhaps was to highlight the trauma of what she experienced, both in terms of the rape and the way she was treated afterwards by society and the legal system. There is some text on the screen at the beginning of the film. It says, "Please be mindful of the triggers in this film. Close your eyes and take deep breaths if you need to. That has helped me many times." I thought this was a very strong start, a really good way to start the film. It tells you that you're going to see something harrowing, but it also has the feeling that you're not alone. And reflecting on it afterwards, I actually wonder whether the film is made for other victims and not for a general cinema audience that's going to nitpick at its documentary techniques just as I'm doing. In the end, I don't think there is any doubting her credibility, but I think that while watching, the unevenness of the documentary did make me question once or twice whether we were watching something reliable. I can only give you my opinion, my experience, but I'm open to the fact that other people may experience this film very differently, particularly if they've experienced the issues that the film covers. Apart from issues around credibility, I would have really enjoyed seeing more detail on the evidence gathering, the legal strategies and the case preparation. I think this would have added interesting depth and context to the narrative, even bringing out some of the drama of it. One other issue that I'm not sure about. The film is presented as if it's a fly-on-the-wall documentation of the actual process that she went through over many years. A lot of the footage is rough and shaky, suggesting authenticity in this being recorded in a rather ad hoc way as things happened. But I'm not clear on whether she knew she was making a documentary as she started out or not. This isn't really a criticism, but it does relate to the point that at times the factual rigour felt a little bit superficial. There's no doubt that Ito allowed us to see her emotional vulnerability. This wasn't superficial. But at times the other aspects of the film did feel a bit superficial in their lack of detail. Listen, overall, I do not want to criticise this film. It's a powerful and courageous documentary that succeeds in humanising Ito's story and shedding light on the systemic barriers faced by survivors of sexual violence. Its raw emotional intensity in the portrayal of Ito's journey make it a compelling and thought-provoking watch. However, the film's focus on the emotional and personal aspects of the story sometimes comes at the expense of narrative clarity and factual rigour. A more detailed exploration of the investigative process and the broader societal context would have strengthened the documentary, I think. making it more comprehensive and a more balanced portrayal of Ito's fight for justice. In the end, Black Box Diary is a testament to the resilience of survivors and the importance of speaking out against justice. While it might not be a perfect documentary, it is an essential one, a raw and unfiltered account of one woman's fight for truth and justice in the face of overwhelming odds. I definitely recommend this documentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.